Nyx had yet to manage the feat, possibly because she did not want to be in her physical body. The heaviness of her mortal coil grew with each stair, until she reached the top and the weight of herself was nearly unbearable. A door appeared in the otherwise nebulous space. As she always did, she considered not opening it. But if she didn't, Jevrin would tear through her temporary world and slam her back into reality. So she pushed the door open and stepped through. The last remnants of peace and light were replaced by the turmoil of her mind and the heaviness of her body. Settling back into herself felt like pulling on an old coat, one she'd worn for years and never thought about, but which she had now become uncomfortably aware of and wasn't certain she liked anymore. Re-inhabiting her body produced a feeling not entirely unlike the pins and needles when her feet woke up after having fallen asleep, except that instead of mild discomfort, it felt like her fingertips were splintering apart, and that fracture was traveling all the way through her body. She gritted her teeth and held perfectly still, despite the desire to move. Because also, like a limb that had fallen asleep and was now waking, movement only made everything hurt more. Every time she went through this process, every time she experienced the whole of her body splintering apart, she wondered if this was where Jevrin had learned his perfect control. Before, she'd assumed he'd come out of the womb with an aloof expression and a healthy disdain for everything and everyone around him. But she supposed doing this every day would have the same effect. The pain, which had started in her toes and her fingertips, finally joined in the center of her body in a white-hot burst, and then it was over. She blinked her eyes open and found Jevrin staring intently at her. She sat across from him on the plush rug that covered his library floor, her legs crossed, hands resting on her knees. Jevrin mirrored her, the only difference between them that scrutinizing expression on his face. "What?" she snapped. She had never particularly cared for being stared at. She cared for it a lot less now that everyone kept looking at her like they expected her to break at any moment. Considering everyone consisted of all of 2 people, and she couldn't even handle that, it didn't bode well for her reintroduction into the wider world. Something Jevrin's next words made clear he'd been considering as well, if not with the same pessimism as she. "Have you given any thought to when you will return home?" Nyx's heart squeezed in her chest. Sometimes home was something she wanted so badly she didn't know how she stood being here a moment longer. Home was the embrace of Caleris's senses, the comfort and steadiness of Griff's acceptance, the warmth and laughter of Morgan and Evra. But home was a place she couldn't go. Not yet.